everybody, I'm Ryan. Welcome to 113 Cycles. Today, we're going to be working on the 1970 Honda CT90 we have here. This one started with a fuel leak in the bowl and down at the bottom on the drain. So, yeah, we did quite a bit of work to figure out it was something really simple. So, take a look and see if you can figure out what it was early on. All we've done so far is taken the slide out where the cable goes in, where the throttle cable goes in, and undid these two bolts, which were not very tight at all, and that's it. So next we're going to pop these two hoses off right here, and then we'll have the carburetor off. We'll take the filter off later. I'll probably go ahead and clean it since I've got it off. We're already in here, so that's what we're looking at. Drain down there. So far, no fuel dripping. I don't think. That's wet, so maybe so. Right, we've got the carb off. A little bit of fuel leaking, but it's not bad. Do have a cup underneath there, but it's pretty much, it's so minor, it's not even making it down there. It's dry. So carburetor's off. We're gonna pop off these two screws and we'll get to the bowl. Oh, here we have the carb. We've got the float off. We've got the needle over there. Everything looks really good. I mean, I haven't cleaned anything. See how clean this is? So I definitely think we just got some trash in that float valve. I haven't looked at the float needle itself. Let's see if we can see it here. Yeah, tip definitely maybe looks a little bit worn. Probably see it better than I can, honestly. A little bit of a ring there. I'll check in a second and see if it's... It could be our problem right there. Oops. Definitely need to make sure that little button right there is not sticking as well. Yep, as you can possibly see, that little tab, right, that little nub right there, I pushed it down, it is not coming back out. So, I think that's our problem right there, is that little piece is sticking. We're gonna try and clean this. Hopefully that fixes. If not, well, we'll order another one, but I'm surprised it's sticking. So I wonder if it's just got some debris in there. So we'll clean it up, see if it's working. All right, so I got the camera set up on the tripod. Sorry, I'm moving around a lot, but you can see, let's see if I can do this. This little pin right here, it was stuck. Now, it's kind of hard to see there, but it's moving. So I think there's a hair or something on there. So I do believe that was the problem right there. I ran it through the ultrasonic cleaner about 4 or 5 times, and now it moves with no problem. I'll sit here and do this all day long. It's not doing anything. And the other side of the needle looks really good. You can kind of see there. Like that. It does seem to have a little ridge on there, right around there, but it doesn't. So it's just a line, but there's no mark there or anything. As far as it's smooth. I examined it pretty well, and it's very smooth. So this thing's ready to go back in, and hopefully that solves our leaking gas problem. So that little pin sits right in there, if you can see, and that controls the float. Can't really get a good angle to show you. You can kind of see the pin there. But notice how these are popping back up. So what happens is that little pin, when this pushes down on it, when the fuel gets too high, this is actually upside down. So normally, this would sit like this. And then you have these floats that will move as you get more fuel in it. It'll fill up, and that little pin gets pushed, and that's what stops the fuel flow. There's a little tang right here. You can see that little metal piece, and that's what holds the float onto there. And I think we just got a little trash in there, but now really hard to see that little pin in there, but now it's bopping. Like I said, you can do it this way and see how it pops back up. That pin is right underneath my finger there, but see, now we're bopping around. So all fixed, hopefully. Well, as you can see, we've got it back on there. There's really nothing to it. I mean, the bolt just sits on there. You got 2 screws from the top. You put your gasket on, done. Make sure your fuel's on the off. So when you hook your fuel lines up, when it fills up, it doesn't pour in there. And we're not dripping any fuel out of the bottom, so that's good news. All we need to do, and like I said, put these 2 bolts on, 10 millimeters, snug them down, hook those 2 fuel lines up, top one to the top, bottom to the bottom. You have the upper is your regular fuel, the bottom is your reserve. So depending on which way you have it. And basically all we have to do now is just put the throttle in on this. It's the slide, which we did in another video, or possibly the same one. I don't know how I'm gonna edit it yet. Same deal, you've got the notches here. Make sure that they line up. And once they line up, that thing will drop in. If you don't have it lined up, notice how it doesn't fall. So then we turn it until we find that notch. There it is. Once we hit that notch, the whole thing just drops in real easy. I'm not pushing, it's just falling on its own. We've got the rubber on there, so it's a little bit harder to turn now, which is a good thing. Push down a little bit. There we go. Get it to catch. Make sure we don't cross thread it. That is on. We'll double check our throttle. If you can hear it. So we know that's working. Now we turn the fuel on. And down is on. Should fill up the bowl. And we'll see if it leaks. This is our drain down here, the float drain. Basically what happens normally is when that float, if it sticks, instead of the fuel going into the carb and into our cylinder, what it does is there's a little tube in there, and as it fills up, it gets over that line, and that fuel will go down there and drip out here. And that's what was happening, was our float was stuck on an open position, letting fuel flow, and then what it does is it goes into that tube and then pours out. You always want to make sure you fix that as soon as possible for multiple reasons. Obviously, you need to be able to get the fuel to stop, but that way something doesn't happen and that fuel doesn't fill up too much and get it to go back into the cylinder, which obviously would be bad, adding extra fuel in there. And basically you would be flooding it out, and then if you try and start it, it doesn't ignite. You can break all sorts of engine parts with it, rings and stuff like that. So, but as you can see, it's not dripping at all. So I think we're fixed. What we're gonna do is flip this over to reserve, which is in the up position on this one. Everything's different. You have on, off, and reserve, and still nothing coming out. Hopefully we have fuel flowing. Probably not. I'm gonna turn that off because I still have the fuel clamps on. So let me take the fuel clamps off first. These are the fuel line clamps I used. Basically, it's just a wing nut. And as you loosen that wing nut, you can slide it out. And all it is basically is this little tube here, and you loosen and tighten. And as you do, that opens up. You tighten it, that closes, tightens your fuel line. We had 2 fuel lines, so I'm gonna undo the second one. That was the main, this is the reserve. We don't need to do much. It should slide out of here. There we go. We do have fuel in the windows. It's filling up slowly in there, which is good. Let's go back and see if the other side, see if we're leaking. All right, our fuel is off. We are not leaking. This is our nipple down here. That's what you want to watch right now, because we have the fuel off. Our hose clamps are now off, and we do have fuel in our filters. I'm flicking those around a little bit to make sure we have fuel in there. So first thing we're gonna do is turn the fuel on, and we're gonna watch right down here and see if it starts bubbling or anything. Just double checking stuff, movement and everything like that. And so far so good. It shouldn't take too long to fill up that bowl. It's not a very big bowl. So I think we're good there. We're gonna flip it over to reserve now. And we're on reserve again. And so far, nothing coming out. So I think we fixed it. Next thing we'll need to do is test drive it and see if it does it again. I think we should be fine though. Nope, there it is. We got fuel coming out, as you can see. So we're gonna have to inspect this a little bit more. There's not a whole lot coming out, but some is what we don't even want at all. There's another drip. So probably that bowl has filled up. I'm gonna turn this off. So what this could be, and we don't know, we're gonna have to look, is that tube in there, it's a brass tube, can get cracks in it, and that can cause that fluid that's come in there to fill up, to start leaking out rather than going in there. So that sucks. That definitely means there's something else wrong, and the first thing we're going to examine is going to be that tube. Of course, we'll check that float and see if that float still moves once we pull this carb ball back off again, and we'll go from there. So we take those 2 screws off, and that comes out. You can see how much fuel is still left in there. That is a lot of fuel. It's possible that we bent our tang as well. I do need to, this is the tube, but like I said, when it gets too high, there's a little hole in the top of that tube, if you can see it, and the fuel will come up, and that tube comes out right down here at the bottom, as you can see. So I need to test this. We'll probably fill it up with water and see if it leaks. And if not, we'll need to adjust the float level. I think that may be what we need to do next. So, but we need to go dump some fuel before we blow ourselves up. That's not gonna happen. I was examining this tube to see if it had a crack in it, and I didn't see anything. What I did notice is this little notch down here, and I didn't know what it was. So I started looking, and on the outside of the carburetor, you can follow passages. Well, there's a passage right over here, which leads to this knob, which I assumed was a high altitude knob, as these bikes actually came with them, and I didn't know any better, so I assumed that's what this was. Now, I think, and I'm pretty confident, we're about to find out, but I think that's a drain. You just turn the drain. Normally you have a screw and you can turn it, but I didn't see one on this one on either side, so I just assumed that was the high altitude knob, although I didn't understand it. That's why I was trying to look at it to figure it out. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna turn this, so I believe it would be closed that way, going all the way in, and I've got some water. I'm gonna dump it in here. Hopefully, it goes in there. And then, we're gonna open up this knob. Notice it's not leaking at all. There's a little drip there from where I missed, but I bet we open up this knob and it starts pouring out. Well, there it is. So, all that time, it was just this knob, which I'll go ahead and close back, that was leaking. It apparently had got bumped when I was cleaning it or something, just enough, or quite enough, that it was, as you can see, turn it out, starts pouring. Turn it all the way back in, and it was not all the way in, it was about a turn or so out. I hadn't messed with it, but I'm betting it just moved around, and then when I rode it around, it was probably loose, and then got further loose. So, I think that's our problem. Let's clean that out. Basically what I'm gonna do now is just clean that out with brake cleaner, reassemble everything, and we'll try it again. All right, as you can see, fuel is on, right? Yeah, fuel is on, and there's plenty of fuel in the tank, so I don't have to have it on reserve. Our fuel clamps are off, carburetor's hooked up. Choke still works, I didn't mess with it. So we're waiting to see if it's gonna leak, and it's been sitting for just a minute or two, so we're gonna try that. But what I'm gonna do is actually flip it over to reserve, just in case. Basically it'll pull fuel from the lower part of the tank. I think there's plenty of fuel in there, but I'm not positive, so we're just gonna sit there and wait for it a second, see if it drips. Still dry as a bone. That's a minute or two later, which is way better than it was before. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the fuel off for now. I think that's a fix. All right, well, obviously we got it sitting outside. Need to put the down tube cover back on, but I wanted to get it started, run it for just a second, and make sure we're not leaking. So far, we haven't had a drop, but of course we wanna make sure. That was easy enough, wasn't it? Let it warm up a little bit.
Yeah, people are going to get out of the way when they hear that. I'm happy with it. Oh yeah, we're ready to hit the streets now. Well, I'm going to get that down tube cover back on there, and I take it for a quick test drive. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it.